All right, everyone, we are back on the Ramped podcast. Today I have a special guest with us. It is Caroline Riley out of the Chicagoland area. Caroline, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me here today, Danny. Out of the Chicago era and the Chicagoland area. I love it.
I love it. I love it. Obviously, spent some time in Chicago myself. It is near and dear to my heart. Before we jump into those 5 questions that we ask all our guests on every show of the Ramp podcast, I want to know, who is Caroline Riley?
Wow. I didn't know we'd get so deep into the conversation so quickly. That's a tough one. Curveball here. Who is Caroline Riley? So what do I want folks to know up front? So I am a 41-year-old professional. Uh-oh, my name is now or my age is now forever out there. I live downtown Chicago, as you mentioned, Danny, with my husband Ricky and 2 children, Ariana and Adrian. They're 9 and 7. Grew up in a small town on the west side of Illinois called Monmouth, and have had just a blast in my career through financial services, where I started my career, and then now into sales and the tech space.
Love it. Love it. There's nothing like Chicago, and there's nothing like being in that big Midwestern city. So much fun, and I imagine such a great place to raise a family. I'm obviously from the Midwest too, so biased there, but my years there tend to resonate, and I think about them quite a lot. But if you're ready, I would love to jump into those 5 questions that we ask all our guests on the Rent podcast.
All right. And I think we'll get a little bit more of who am I in those questions than we will out of the gates here.
Amazing. I am excited for that. So, question number 1: what is the best investment an early career salesperson can do for themselves, and why?
Investment. All right. So I thought through this one just a little bit in preparation. And there are lots of things that could be considered an investment. There's time, energy, money, etc. So I'll imagine that we've already taken care of getting a good education, building our skills up, connecting with folks. I would suggest, from an investment perspective, non financial, the best thing an early career salesperson can do is learn who they are. This will thread throughout the entire conversation, but I've spent the better part of my life doing that. And as I continually dig and hone and refine that discovery process, it makes me realize that earlier in my career, I didn't do that as well as I could have. And it drives so much of our success and our ability to feel good about what we're doing and where we are.
It's a great answer. And we don't often get that. I think it's actually really difficult, in my opinion. If I'm looking back at the early part of my career, I certainly didn't know exactly who I was coming out of school or coming out of Michigan. And I guess the question then becomes, how do you do it at such a young part of your life, early part of your career, formative years? How do you get to that understanding quicker or faster or better, or realize you're on the journey and it's not complete yet and it's okay? But that's something that I think is really profound advice. I'm curious to dig in a little bit on that one.
Sure, Danny, and thanks for the question. It's a great one, and I wish I could give you this perfect answer. But what I'll tell you first and foremost is that it's really hard work. And it's some of the hardest work you'll ever do, because you have to look at things maybe that your brain is protecting you from looking at, right? Things that you may not love about yourself, or things that you regret or feel guilt over. That being said, once you do that, you open up all the beauty of possibility. And so I guess the fastest path is to acceleration is to realize what you just said, that it is a journey. And I would recommend getting uncomfortable as quickly as you can. It's you. You don't have to be scared of yourself. It's okay. Nothing in there is wrong. It's who you are, and it's wisdom. And once you harness and learn how to harness that wisdom, you'll be more successful overall. And that doesn't just go for career, that's life as well.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, Caroline. That is such good advice. And something you could probably take home at any stage of your career is, it's just you. You don't need to be scared. It's just you. And it's okay to be uncomfortable at times and embrace those feelings. and sit in them and then realize you are on that journey. We're getting really deep off the bat. I,
I
I
know, I
really I
was like,
really do like
"Wait, what?
it.
Whoa, what did I just do with that?"
Oh, I love it. I love it. We could probably spend the rest of the time just talking about that one, but we do have to move on to the second question, which is how has your view of sales changed over your career, and why do you think that's happened?
Certainly. So I think just it's another good zinger question. I think early on in my career, I had some stereotypical biases about salespeople that I don't believe to be true. So, upon making a pivot from financial services and risk management to sales, I was concerned that people would view me as less than intelligent or not knowing what I'm talking about or greedy or money hungry. And what I've learned about sales is that it's so much more than what people realize. And we're asking folks not just to be brilliant from an IQ perspective, but we're also asking them to do what I just shared, which is to develop that brilliance in their EQ. So thinking through how they interrelate with others in the world, who they are themselves, how they communicate their brand, how they build trust, those things are really challenging to do and they require an extreme level of intelligence. And I think I had some misperceptions about that earlier on.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. And the stereotype is something that we've spoken about on other episodes here. Folks maybe growing up interacting with the I'm just going to probably throw out some sales stereotypes right now, but the high school athlete who was a bully type and then became a salesperson, or the smooth talking wherever they came from person in your life who became the real estate agent, whatever it is. And those folks, because I think of their personality and maybe some of their bravado, get emphasized a little bit more, and then you see them portrayed in movies and on shows, and it kind of crystallizes this view. And really what is left out is the amount of energy and effort it takes the typical salesperson, which I would say is not the stereotypes you see at all, to develop that high degree of EQ, the intelligence that's beyond just the book or beyond academics, is profound. Like they really have to go at it and they really have to work at it. And the definition of smart or intelligent when you're growing up or in school is you've got an A, versus some of the things that make salespeople exceptional have literally nothing to do with a book or the grade you got in college or how well you perform at X test. It is people driven. It's somewhat of an art, and you can apply a lot of science topics to it, but it is a skill, and it's one that is really never taught and really does take that energy and effort and committed to it. And you have to, especially when you jump in right away in early career form, you're expected to know right off the bat, or you're a lot of sales teams are pretty ruthless, or you're out, right?
That's right. I shouldn't say that. That is often the expectation. It is.
Yeah,
So you get it.
yeah,
You get it, Danny. You definitely understand that. And it's been healthy for me to learn that over my career, but it's also a challenge because you have to help convince others of that skill set. Something I learned in my last job with my last company is really to focus in on the how. We spend so much time on the what. How much did you sell? What was your attainment? What was your paycheck? What is your title? But the how is what we're talking about here, and all of that componentry is really, I mean, you have to be a mastermind to get all of that right. And what I just came to last week and I shared with the team this week is if the what is the last thing we're looking for, those results, those outcomes, and the how is the cultural practices and norms, the ways in which we get there, the real foundation is the who. And that goes back to your very first question and my very first response, which is knowing who you are is the most important component or a critical factor for your success.
yeah. It's great insight and super helpful to know that there's some just basic stuff you need to do before you jump in. And it's okay to put the work in on that basic stuff and not just dive into like how to actually sell a product, what features are going to resonate, what script do I need to memorize, which is a lot of the noise that you hear early in your career and you must try to figure out.
Exactly, and if you memorize someone else's script, but you don't feel passionate about it, guess what? It
Yep,
doesn't land well. It's
exactly
something
right.
like a noise my seven-year-old son makes, It's Friday, I can do that, right?
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, I have two kids as well, so I frequently do the noises that they do too.
Yes.
Well, cool. Moving on to question number three. It's one of my favorites. What is one mistake you made early in your career that shaped the way you operate today?
So thematically, this will all start to sound the same, but hopefully I can differentiate this response from the others. So by no means am I suggesting that I haven't made many mistakes. I have. But if I have to pick one, that's a really challenging ask. So, from a thematic perspective, as I thought about this one, what I would share is kind of tied to what we've been talking about throughout, which is I conformed in ways that weren't authentic to me because I thought I had to. And I did that for years. Now, most people who know me would say, "Oh, Caroline's always authentic. She's real. That's one thing I consistently hear from friends, family, and colleagues." That being said, in the working world and in my career, I thought there were specific patterns that I had to follow and specific people and norms and ways I had to do things that didn't really align with who I am. It wasn't that I was inauthentic. It was more so that I could have brought more of myself to the table sooner. And once I learned how to do that, my career success really just started to unfold. And it's more fun. I wasn't copying someone else's way of doing things, I was creating my own. And that was inspiring, and it gave me passion that then created energy that other people picked up on.
That's great. That's really great. It reminds me a little bit of my first role, my first sales role at Groupon. I didn't know anything about sales. I came out of school with a finance degree and thought I was going into banking. And I graduated into the great financial collapse. So that quickly changed. And I took a sales job at Groupon and didn't know what I was doing, didn't know what I should have been doing or what people thought you should be doing. All of those thoughts were in my head. And I imagined myself a little bit as an actor portraying a salesperson for the first like year, I would say. Like, I need to do this to be this type of salesperson. It was really difficult for me to kind of balance that with the role and even the career path kind of just still didn't really jive. And it took me a while to actually find my niche within the role or within the org, etc. And it probably has matured over the rest of my career as well.
Exactly, and do you remember the time in which it kind of shifted? Like, what was the breakthrough?
I think it was focusing less on the result. And sales is very result driven, obviously. Like, you need to focus on results, but focusing less on the result and trying to put myself in the moment of the build. That was what really excited me about startups and sales for the combo, was being able to build something. And once I wrapped my head around that, that's when it really clicked for me.
That's so awesome. I love the build as well, and I love the build with others. So there's this whole concept, it's, a friend of mine shared it with me, one of my culture guru friends, and she talked about producers, stabilizers, and unifiers. And unifiers being the team members who really wanna get everyone together and row the boat, and have fun. That's definitely me. As I build, I rely upon the collaborative environments. I really love that.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's always going to be something, or there will be something in your career for the audience where you're just attached to, and you figure out like you could be great at this one thing, even if it is within a role. And it takes a while to get there. And I think I'm glad this thread is kind of echoed throughout the episode. And I'm sure it will too. But it's okay to just to figure that out. It's okay to be on that journey, that path, and you don't need to have it all set in stone day one when you get there.
You got it, and I have I have determined I'm on it forever now. And I think I always was. I just didn't recognize that because you're always chasing that, well, when I get here and when I do this. But really, no, it's about that present moment, to your point.
Yep, that's great. Moving on to question number 4. Who has had the greatest impact on your career? And if you could expand, that'd be great.
So another tough one. I for some reason with all of your questions, I cannot just pick one response. But I'll take this one in twofold. So more than anything, from a personal perspective, my career success is largely due to my husband, Ricky. The world we live in doesn't work unless the two of us are on a team. He has a demanding career that he loves as well, and we have 2 children. So being a parent yourself, that the juggling of life can sometimes be a challenge, and Ricky has been incredible as a partner even prior to us having children, in terms of making sure that I felt really comfortable chasing after my goals and my dreams, and he's supported me all throughout the way. And as the closest to us, hear the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I would say he's the biggest reason for my success. Formally, from a career perspective, also personal for me, just because I know her so deeply, is the career coach that I hired a couple of years ago. And her name's Erica Gerdes. You see the smile on my face. She absolutely changed my life, not just my career. She is an incredible strategic partner, thought leader. That sounds too formal, but she's been guiding me over the past couple of years and has helped me open up so much in terms of possibility for my career.
Yeah, I love that. Well, shout out to Ricky and shout out to Eric, who that's awesome. Appreciate you sharing both, one from personal and one from sort of professional. I'm sure professional and personal have merged a bit with Erica as well.
They have. They certainly have, but she can do both very, very well, and sometimes it's all business, and sometimes I say, "Erica, I just need to talk about something that's been bothering me," and she'll help guide that as well.
As any good coach should. So that
Mhm.
sounds like a great match. Last question for you is something we've asked all of our guests all 3 seasons on the Rep podcast. Obviously, it's our cornerstone question, but if you could go back in time, now that you have the benefit of hindsight, and give yourself one piece of advice as you were entering into your career, what would that advice be?
I didn't prepare a response because I wanted to be off the cuff as much as possible here, but now I am really on my heels. So this will be interesting. So definitely sticking with the theme, I could say the piece of advice is be you. It's as simple as that. But there's something more profound here that I think I've learned that might resonate with earlier career folks. And that's never feel that you have to hold back on being human. So it's be you, but it's also when life and society tells us that we need to be something else and everyone behind closed doors is saying that's not me. Don't be afraid to be that lone nut or that lone wolf, if you will, and be you. Because what I've learned is that when I've done that, there are so many people who feel the same way, and it's a collective relief that we all feel when we can not be afraid to be human, have emotion, make mistakes, all the things that happen in life. And certainly with all the change we're experiencing right now, we have to allow for folks to be human, and we have to allow it in ourselves as well.
Yeah, exceptional advice. The theme of the show as well, which I love. It really is. It is all about you at the end of the day. Like you are in charge of where you go, your own thoughts, your own emotions, the way that you feel in the moment at any role. And the cool part about sales, I think, over my career has been you are interacting with other humans all the time. And that's great. That's such a fun part of the role. And a lot of times that's lost or even just not known in the beginning when you're starting out as a seller or on a sales team is you feel like you've got to be this robot and say these things to get this response and then handle those responses in this way. But really, a lot of times it's just let's just have a conversation. Let's just talk about shared values or shared successes or even shared beliefs and move forward from there or not. And the only way you get to that point of being able to have those types of conversations is, you're right, to be yourself. You got to just be you. If you come off as inauthentic or robotic, you know how those calls are going to go. Those interactions or those partnerships will end up. It's just going to be very like static and rigid, and those aren't fun. There's certainly like times where you need to talk rigidly or robotically or about numbers, but at the end of the day, it is you having belief in yourself and displaying that in a relationship, an equal relationship with your prospect partner, internal on your team, the folks you manage, and that thread will be true throughout your career.
Exactly, and I know it's advice that's been shared over and over again, but it really just hit home for me very recently, in the last 3, 4 years, the power of authenticity and being yourself and how many doors it opens. Lauren Paris, I'll give her a shout as well. She is a friend of ours and told me once, "Feel your feelings." And so that may go in a different part of the podcast, like what I was saying earlier. That whole piece of authenticity and being human, it kind of threads with that. And it's important. We don't have to be smushy on all of our calls, but our emotions are very connected to our intelligence, and it's wisdom that we can draw from.
Yeah, man, this was deep, profound, and I can't say enough good things about where this conversation went and how we got there. So, Caroline, really, really appreciate it. You dropped so much knowledge on us. Yeah, wisdom is the right word. Very wise set of insights that our folks are going to love learning from. Can't thank you enough. Before I let you run, where can folks find you?
Sure. So people can find me on LinkedIn. So Caroline Riley, and I'm working as an AVP at Okta. But I do want to take a moment, Danny, to thank you. One, this was a great conversation, and I appreciate you letting me just riff off the cuff. I love when podcasts feel authentic,
Yeah.
and this one did. What I'll also share is I love the work that you're doing. I really just, there's such power in the partnerships you're forming and the different people that you're serving and seeking to help. So kudos to you and your teams for what you're doing in the market. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Really appreciate that too. And yeah, this is just a fantastic conversation, and the episode will be, I'm sure, one of the best, and I love that authenticity as well. So thanks again. Really, really appreciate it, and we hope to have you back sometime soon on the Ramp podcast.
Thanks, Danny.